Hello friends, welcome to Titus chapter 1. This is a very interesting book written to Titus, who has been sent by Paul to the island of Crete. Crete is one of the Greek islands, and it's kind of in between Greece and Turkey today. And I guess we'll get into this right now. There was an interesting stigma with the Cretans. I think it's kind of still, I don't know about the people in Crete today, but it's interesting. You probably still hear the term a Cretan. If you call someone a Cretan, that means, they're kind of a little, I don't know, they're kind of a bad person. And it comes from this book. There's a lot of justification behind it. I was looking into it, and it looks like a famous old historian, Clavius Josephus, wrote that, the Cretans were pretty much the most horrible people. And there was another one, Cicero, who basically said the same thing. And in this chapter, Paul was talking about a person who was a Cretan, and about his own people. I guess he was a poet or a philosopher, and he said that they are liars, evil beasts, and lazy gluttons. And Paul said that testimony is true. So I'm led to believe that the Cretans were remarkably awful people, but there was a growing church there, not just one church, but there was a group of growing churches there in Crete. And I believe that, sometimes in the places that are the most godless, people can accept Christ even more because they recognize their lostness. So Paul here sent Titus to Crete, not because the people were so bad, but that's probably part of it, but because the leadership was bad. And he's trying to reinstate the leadership. He's trying to make the church in Crete something that can flourish, that can be good. And so, he starts his letter in the same way that he starts all of his letter. He says, I, Paul, and then he basically says, an apostle, someone sent by God to spread the gospel. What I think is interesting about this introduction is that when he talks about himself, he always talks about God. He's like, Paul, a servant, an apostle of God. And in this letter, he says something really interesting about God. He says, the God who never lies. We've never really heard him say the God that never lies before. It's probably not necessary. And the Bible Project pointed out something that was kind of interesting, and that is that Crete, the Cretans at least, believe that Crete was the place where Zeus was born. Zeus, unlike God, the real God, he has been known to be a little tricky. He can lie. And that probably works into the culture. If you have a God that lies and you have these people, they probably think, well, lying's not that bad. Why not be a liar? Lie all you want. Our God does. The standard for living has no problem with lying. So Titus, or Paul, writing to Titus, says, the God that never lies, the God that cannot lie. And so he goes on to the letter, and he's talking about basically what he's looking for in someone to be an overseer. Now, this is very, very similar to what he was writing to Timothy. To Timothy, he basically was saying the same thing, that he's looking for people that are moral, that understand right and wrong, people that have a family, that their children are walking in the gospel. If you have people and their family is walking with the Lord, that they know how to lead people to the Lord. So Paul goes into the problem with the leadership, and he says there's these people that are teaching things that are contrary to the gospel, and he said, and the worst are the Jewish people in the church. Now, it should be pointed out that Paul probably did not start this church. If you look back in the book of Acts and you see the day of Pentecost, it says that there were people from Crete that were there on the day that the Holy Spirit came to the church. So, it's reasonable to believe that someone from that very early time went to Crete and started the churches there themselves. But Paul is correcting the church because, the people that were there on the day of Pentecost were all Jewish Christians. And so they're going back, and some of them are saying, you need to become Jewish to become a Christian, which is, the problem that they were having all over the world, but, especially in Galatia. So here in Crete, they have these people, and this isn't the whole problem, but it's a major part of it. They're saying you need to be a Jew before you become a Christian, and you have these people that are doing it for selfish reasons. They were probably profiting off of the church. And Paul is telling them, this is wrong. And he says something here that I think this is the most important part of this chapter. And he says, to the clean, everything is clean. To the pure, to the purified, everything is pure. And to the unpure, everything is impure. Probably alluding to the dietary laws of the Jews. They're trying to make everybody follow the dietary law. What he's trying to say here is, when you've been purified, the Holy Spirit does good works in you. It can make it so that when you are doing things, you're doing it for God. If you're doing it in the right order. And that's important. That's so important. When you have been purified, when you're pure because you trust in God, the things you do are not for selfish ambitions, but they're for God. And when you're working for God, God can work through you. And when God works through you, He can make a real change in this world. However, when you're trying to get people to work for their own salvation, when you're trying to have them follow laws so that they can be saved, God can't work through that because you're not working through God's way. You're not trusting in His salvation for your righteousness. You're trusting in your own righteousness. And he's basically saying there can be no good from that. If you're not trusting in the provision that God has made, you can't lead other people to the provision that God has made. So this is a very profound statement. He's also speaking to the unpurified, the impure, and he's talking to the Jewish people. I think that's really interesting, because they would consider themselves to be the pure. Well, he said something that was really interesting about the people that are, the bad leaders in the church. He's calling them detestable and disobedient. And he's saying, Titus, you need to not be like that, and you need to put leaders that are not like that. If we want to be pure, and if we want to do things that are good, that are positive in this world, we should trust in God first. Trust in God, and then do. So that is Titus chapter 1. Have a great day.